Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
As we get the show started today, we want to welcome in the new CEO and owner of the Atlanta Hawks, co-owner that is, Steve Koonin, to the program. Now, I tweeted out yesterday how excited I was about the Hawks hiring Steve Koonin. I don't know him. Somebody tweeted me and said, you must know him. I don't know him. I'm meeting him for the first time today. What I do know is that he's been a brilliant TV executive, and more importantly, he's a guy that knows this city. And so for him to be hired by the Hawks, I thought it was a great decision moving forward, as this organization certainly is going to get rebranded in some ways and moving forward, grow this franchise. So, Steve, welcome into the studio. We appreciate the time today.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Cordell. Thank you for having me, Carl.
Yep.
It's really exciting to be here. I think because I was with the Hawks that I was 6'5", the way my chair was.
Yeah.
They didn't realize I was 5'6", and my feet are dangling to the floor. And Cordell had to help me get in my chair, so I'm off to a really good start.
I love it because Steve walks down the hall and we end up meeting. And you're right, because you see the pictures, and for some people who have never seen you or met you in person, you're like, wow, Steve Koonin, he's this big, booming guy. He's not. He's
a little bit like Seinfeld's Newman after Weight Watchers.
Well, let's talk about, first and foremost, you are the former president of Turner Entertainment Networks and now the co-owner and CEO of the Hawks, which means what? You're going to be handling what? For the common guy that's listening right now, what's that mean?
Well, I am a small owner. Bruce Levinson who is the majority owner, and he is terrific. What I've been brought in to do is help run the operations. While we have a great ownership group, most of them do not live in Atlanta. And as I grew up in this town, every town you guys have been in, you worked for the Rooney family. Yep. There is somebody who needs to be accountable. They need to be accountable to the fans. They need to be accountable for the team, for the venue. And the management of the Atlanta Hawks was looking for somebody with local roots and the experience to try to take this team to the next level. The NBA is on fire. If it was a stock, it'd be everybody's pick. And so what I've been challenged to do is help take the Hawks to the next level by using the incredible talent of Danny Ferry on the basketball operations, Bob Williams, who's done a brilliant job with the arena and one of the most respected guys, and Phillips Arena is part of this, and great concert business, and the circus, and all of the great acts, and get the team working together, but to be that accountable face, that person that if something goes right or something goes wrong with the Hawks or Phillips, you can talk to. And that's going to be what I'm going to do.
Steve, when you look at everything that's taken place with the Hawks, they've been branded, I would say, as the highlight factory, so to speak, from the Dominique Wilkins era, a time when everything was about flash and having fun and having a great time, where now it's kind of lost its zest just a little bit. And the things that you talk about is like branding, and you also talk about the fan base. Which strategies are you trying to use and implement to get the fan base to be enthused about their Hawks?
Well, the first thing is it's really a partnership with the team and the fans. And so the first thing I want to do is get their input. I want to understand what turns them on. I want to see what happened in Golden State. I want to see what's happened in other markets that make them so successful without the one shining superstar. We've got a lot of talented stars, but if it's only about that one player, then we're not going to achieve our goals. So the first thing I want to do is assess it. I want to listen to the fans. I want to learn from the fans. I want to see other success and best practices in the NBA. And then we have to execute it every day. Not lip service, not an ad campaign. We have to live it. And that means it's got to be a great experience. In the 80s, Saturday night at the Hawks game was the coolest thing you could do. Whether you were young, old, black, white, it didn't matter. It was a great vibe, and you went and watched the team. We've got to create that emotional tie. I listen to your station. There is a lot of passion that gets talked about. We need that passion for the Hawks. I don't care if you hate us, but I want you to be passionate. It's the Howard Stern theory. People who llove him listen an hour. People that hate him listen for two. I want people to be turned on by the Hawks and love what we do and challenge what we do. So I'm going to work with the fans to organically build the brand, and it's going to take a little time. There's no quick or easy answers.
No, there really isn't. Steve Koonin in studio with us here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game, co-owner, CEO of the Hawks. He just has taken this job literally this week. The announcement came down, and we've got a lot to talk about in the sense of what you're saying. And you mentioned this connection. I love the fact that you say, this is what I remember. You are from Atlanta. And what we get so much on this program, and since I've been here in this city, is, well, Dukes, everybody's not from here. There's so many people from elsewhere, and their allegiances are from elsewhere. And in your experience in TV, and I say this about my restaurants and I say it about my TV shows, 3 years ago, the show came on, Walking Dead. Nobody knew what the hell, Mad Men has just started again. Nobody knew what this show was 7 years ago, but word of mouth got out and good shows get a following. And I think what you're saying is, just like in TV, if the team is a good product and the entertainment value is good, the word is going to get out and people will come, right? Is that kind of the, build it and they will come philosophy?
Well, no, I mean, we've got to probably do a little bit more work. You made a great point on Walking Dead. That was new. So you surprised and delighted. Well, we've got an image. We have to move past that image. We have to surprise and delight, and we want to surprise people with new news about the Hawks. And truthfully, the Hawks are a really good team. We had some unfortunate injuries, but those guys fought like hell, and they made the playoffs. And every game is a battle, and these guys don't quit. And so I see a lot of success this year, and I'm really excited about next season because we get Al back. We get Jenkins back. We get a lot of positives moving forward. So what we've got to do is play great on the court and be relevant off the court. And I think if we can do those things, we're going to have a lot of success, and that building will be rocking again.
Steve, you worked for Coke. Obviously, you work for Turner. And I mentioned you're from Atlanta, so you know the city. You know what people here like and tend to want to do. Your experiences with those two companies, I mean, how is that going to help you with this job? A lot of people may hear you and say, wow, Steve Koonin, great experience there, but how does that translate to the NBA? How does that help you in your everyday job with the Hawks?
Well, when you drive down 75 and you see that giant Coke bottle on top of Turner Field, that was an idea we had back in 1996. We listened to the fans, and we learned that baseball had a lot of pauses, a lot of breaks, that people wanted to be entertained. They wanted to refresh themselves. So what we did was we built a theme park on top of Turner Field. And the celebration, the quintessential element of baseball, the home run, the Coke bottle would explode for the home team. And in the day, it was made out of 6,218 baseball pitching rubbers, cleats, catcher's protectors. We built cool zones on top where on 95-degree day, it was a cool mist that would cool you down. And we celebrated the fun part of baseball. So what I've learned is how to create experiences, how to create brands, and how to get viewers and consumers to act and to behave and to do something. And so what I'm hopeful with the Hawks and why this was so exciting to me is this is my hometown. There's not a lot of Atlanta natives. We don't breed well in captivity, obviously. But all of those people are from another market. Their kids are Atlantans. And their kids are playing NBA Y2K, and their kids are watching NBA. And I might not be able to get we might not be able to get a 65-year-old to come down to Phillips Arena for a litany of reasons. But we can get a 30-year-old. And that 30-year-old will be a 40-year-old. And that 40-year-old will be able to bring their families and have a great experience. So we're going to focus on the future, both of the fans, and we're going to grow Atlanta fans. This is a phenomenal city, and there's 6 million of us.
Wow, that's a lot. You mentioned the Rooney family in Pittsburgh, and that's a family that started out in the city of Pittsburgh with the old man, Mr. Rooney, to now Art Rooney Jr. is actually a part of everything, and they understand the makeup of the city, and that's what you're speaking about. What can you do or what's missing with the fan base today, other than the household name player, as we alluded to earlier on in the conversation? What do you think Atlanta Hawks basketball is missing right now?
Well, I think there's two things that happen. I think because this is such a great city, there's 1,000 things to do.
Right.
You can go to Chastain Park on a Saturday night. You can go to one of 50 great restaurants on a Saturday night. You can see a Braves game. This past Saturday, you had the Dogwood Festival at Piedmont Park. You had the Braves. You had the Hawks. You had all these different options. we've got to make it a first-choice entertainment option. And that takes time, and it takes a lot of skill, and there's a lot of really good folks working for the Hawks whose sole desire is to get you to come down and try the product. And I think if you try it, I think you're going to like it, just like any restaurant or any wine.
Steve Koonin, our guest here in studio. Carl Dukes, Cordell Stewart. This is Game Time on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Your biggest obstacle, what do you believe is your biggest obstacle? And with that question, I'm going to open up the phone lines right now. Coming up in about 5 minutes from now, I'm going to allow you to ask Steve a question. Hawks fans, step up. Non-Hawks fans, for those people, Cordell, that we've talked to in the last year, says what? Well, I don't know who the owners are. I don't know. I can't, relate to the Hawks because of this, that, and the other. Steve Koonin is here to answer those questions for you moving forward. And it's about moving forward. It's about what's next for the Hawks. 404-741-0929. 741 404-741-0929. I don't know, 0929 is what I say, but I'm making fun. With that said, what's your biggest obstacle in your opinion, Steve?
I think we live in an instant world today, and people want instant results. And it's going to take a while to change the culture of Atlanta with the Hawks. We had a great time in the 80s. We had good times in the 90s. There hasn't been those great times in recent memory. So we've got to be reverential to the past, but we've got to create our own future.
All right. Phone lines are open. I'm going to take as many calls as we can in the next segment. If you have a question for Steve, a legitimate question, moving forward with the Atlanta Hawks, or if you're a disgruntled Hawks fan, here's your opportunity to ask the new face of our Atlanta Hawks. 404-741-0929. We're going to come back. Carl and Cordell, this is Game Time. Carl Dukes, Cordell Stewart. It's Game Time on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. And joining us in studio, the new CEO, owner of the franchise, Steve Koonin, here visiting with us. Now, I've opened up the phone lines for you to get involved. So, Steve, we're going to take phone calls. If you have a question, all right, I've asked you to dial in. You can also text the show at 22929 on the Solomon Brothers Diamond text line and get in here. So let's start with Jeremy as we are talking to the new Hawks CEO. Jeremy, you're in the game. Steve is here listening. What's your question?
Thanks for having me. Got a quick question, and it has to do with making an emotional connection to the audience. I was a golfer back in the day, played at UGA, and one of the funnest things for me was playing in front of a crowd. And at somewhere down the line, it seems like the basketball has gotten so disconnected from the audience. It seems as if that would be the job one, and my recommendation would be, getting with the kids and making sure that the kids, care about the team.
Jeremy, thank you for the phone call. He's asking you about the emotional connection. Is there a plan or a way to do that? And he's talking about obviously getting more kids involved and having them care about the product. Have you guys even started that process or thought about it?
Well, we haven't started specifically working on the plan for attacking families per se, but I really appreciate Jeremy's question, and it goes to the next generation. We've got to build this generation and simultaneously next generation of fan, and the way we have to do that is by being more than on the court. Maybe we're working with the youth league. Maybe we're involved in their church. Maybe we're working. It's part of the city, working with AAU, and we need to make sure that we're touching you in multiple places where you live, where you work, where you recreate, in order to make a difference. And winning also helps, but it's not the only thing to drive it.
Let's talk to Brian here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Brian, you're on the air with CEO Steve Koonin.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
What I wanted to say was with the loss of the Atlanta Thrashers, a lot of loyal Atlanta fans have bad feelings for the Atlanta Spirit Group. Now, with you joining this group, how do you convince these fans to give the ASG another chance with the Hawks and convince them that you're really invested in the Hawks as a team and not just an income?
Well, you asked the same question that I asked the first time they approached me about coming to work there. What's changed? What's different? Why? Why would I want to leave something as successful as what we built at Turner Broadcasting, where TBS is number one and TNT is number three, and they're three of the four most valuable networks in the world? Why would I want to do that? And I want to do it because I believe in the vision of Bruce Levinson, who's become the majority owner. I believe in Danny Ferry, who is a brilliant guy who's had success everywhere he's been. And so we can live on the past, which doesn't exist anymore, or we can look to the future. And they convinced me, and hopefully, Brian, I can convince you that we have to look to the future. And I believe the money's going to be there to invest. This is not about making a lot of profits. There's a lot of businesses that are a lot more profitable, and I've come from two recently. But I will tell you, there's not a lot of businesses that mean more to the hope and to the health of a city. And so the ownership group is committed to spending. They're committed to bringing in professionals. And I'm sitting here today as evidence of somebody that they aggressively went out and got. I wasn't looking for a job, but I'm sure as hell glad I've got this one.
Steve Koonin here with us on Game Time. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Let's talk to Ra. Ra has a question for the new CEO. Ra, you're in the game. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments. First of all, good season for the Hawks, especially after Horford going down. I would have never imagined them making the playoffs. Listen, I'm from New York, lived in L.A. You mentioned that on any given night there's so much you can do in Atlanta. Unfortunately, I don't buy that because you can do that in any major city. But I think the problem that the Atlanta Hawks have is that since Dominique, they haven't had that player that when you go on the road, there's fans out there wearing their jersey. I think what happens is you got to somehow acquire a player that is a top 10 jersey seller, someone that everybody can identify, someone that fans will come out just to see that individual player. I mean, over the years, the Hawks has had tremendous talent, good players, but they haven't had that one player since Dominique. And I would challenge or recommend that maybe if the Big Three breaks up this year, go after Chris Bosh in a signing trade. Maybe bring a Luau Deng, because if you can't get that top 5 jersey seller or top 10 jersey seller acquisition, then you got to get out there and get the best product possible. And like I said, Chris Bosh could be good, bringing him back home, Georgia Tech player, and possibly Luau Deng to play that swing spot, because right now the weakness on the team is the 3-hole. You bring in a Luau Deng. Maybe you overspend, but these are the moves that you have to make if you cannot get that top 10 jersey seller.
All right, Ra, appreciate the question. I think, and you heard it, Steve, in your comments. I'll say this. My guess is for the Hawks moving forward, in my conversation with Danny Ferry, all options are on the table when it comes to acquiring players. I don't think the Hawks are going to turn down an opportunity to give a presentation to any particular player, Ra, when it comes to signing big-time free agents. That's what this business is about. But with that said, he's talking about adding a star.
Well, there's two things. One, I've never worked in a business where you can get fined for talking about players. So I don't want to get fined before I'm even getting paid. And number two, a star is a wonderful thing. It's a great thing, and you're not wrong. However, we will be aggressive in going after players. And one of the big challenges here and one of the big opportunities are both the same. There are so many entertainers, there are so many athletes who love living in this town. But we've got to have people in the stands cheering for them, because we could put on the greatest marketing presentation man has ever known. But every time they walk in Phillips Arena and walk onto the court, that's really the city's audition. And that's why I need you, the fans, to work together with us. When there's people we want to impress, let's come there and roar for the Hawks. So they say at the end of the game, wow, my house is 3 miles away and I can make this arena my home. And so if we do that, if we deliver on the promise, if we give you a good product and a great entertainment experience, and you cheer like hell for the Hawks, the Stars will want to come here because they're living here.
Let's grab one more for Steve Koonin here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Tom and Canton, you're in the game. What's your question?
I would like to know what the identity of the team is supposed to be going forward, because the marketing before was saying pretty much that the Hawks are going to win a bunch of games and they're going to look good while doing it, but they're not going to win a championship, so just come watch us and we'll put on a show for you, and we call it the Highlight Factory and get athletic players. And now we've gotten rid of Joe Johnson and Marvin Williams and Josh Smith, and we're going a different direction. We got a coach from the Spurs organization who's more about the fundamentals, and I would like to know what is the marketing going forward that's going to say that that's not our thing anymore. We're trying to go for a championship or something greater than what we've been doing.
Tom, I appreciate your question. There's an old saying, everything communicates. What you do, what you don't do, what you say, what you don't say. Right now, I don't know what to say because it's literally 24 hours into my job. But what I will say to you is judge us by our actions. The ownership brought in Danny Ferry. They brought in Coach Bud. They brought myself in for the business side. They've got contract flexibility. I judge on what they're doing, and what they're doing is building for the future, and I really like that. So I can't tell you, I'm sitting here a little impressed that Highlight Factory seems to resonate. So many people remember it. It's, at Coke, 20 years later, the real thing was still what was identified with the product. So Highlight Factory obviously served its time, but we need something new. And Tom, we don't have it today, but we will. But I want you to look at our actions, and our actions are all building towards a future in the most positive way possible.
I want to ask you, Steve, about the escalating ticket prices. I don't know if this is the trend in the NBA or is it something here with the Hawks, but someone texted at 22929 and said, Carl, would you ask about the escalating ticket prices at the arena?
Well, it is, in terms of NBA, the Hawks are one of the great values of the NBA because we're not anywhere close to the top of ticket pricing in any way, shape, or form. And there's all kinds of deals and there's all kinds of values. But the reality today, professional sports are expensive, and it is an expensive opportunity on some nights to take the entire family, and then there's other nights that it's a really good value. So I would say we're going to make sure that we can get every fan in the building who wants to be there with a good ticket package or a good value, and we're going to work very hard to earn the price that we're able to charge.
All right. You ran one of the most prominent TV, broadcast networks in the world, as you mentioned, being the former president of Turner, now the new CEO of the Hawks. TNT, we know drama. TBS, very funny, right? Those are the brands. You know them. If you see them, you get it. Being the executive that has been behind great TV shows and terrible TV shows, what's the best TV show you ever backed and the worst TV show that you were like, this is going to work, and it was awful?
Well, the best was a movie starring William H. Macy called Door to Door. And it was the story of a door-to-door salesman who sold Amway-type products who suffered cerebral palsy. It was a true story. And a lot of our team said, we shouldn't make that movie. He looks distorted. He talks terribly. It's about somebody who overcomes challenges, and I'm not sure that's what people want to see. And I just believed it was such a powerful story because it was true. And it went on to win 6 Emmy Awards, the most that year. And if you've ever had a chance to see the movie Door to Door, it will inspire you. And one quick side note, we put up Bill's website, and he sold $100,000 worth of product that night via the web, which literally was his retirement money.
Wow.
So we did a really good thing. So as wonderful as that is, let's go to the opposite.
Okay.
I personally and single-handedly came up with an idea to make Gilligan's Island a reality show. And so we did the real Gilligan's Island, which turned out to be Survivor in dress-up clothes. And it actually did well in the ratings because of the familiarity of the name, but it was terrible. And I followed that up and decided that it was time for me to get out of programming, turn the reins to a professional. We did Minding the Store, which was the story of Pauly Shore and his family business, the Comedy Store. And after doing a series with Pauly Shore, I kind of said, I'm done coming up with ideas, and turned the reins over.
Steve, it's been a pleasure. You're going to be around, and certainly on this program, you're going to hear a lot of Steve Koonin over the next 6 to 8 to how many ever years that he's a part of this franchise. It is a great move by the Hawks moving forward. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed the time. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Steve Koonin.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Get in the game on Twitter at 929 The Game.
On Facebook /929 The Game.
On YouTube /929 The Game.
On your phone, the free Audio Roadshow app.
The website 929thegame.com.
Watch the game. Watch 929thegame.com.
And listen at 929thegame.com.
Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.